It's not going to win me any fans in Las Vegas. I'm going to say the Raiders. And I think, again, same thing here with the Raiders, where they did win 10 games last year, and they were impressive at the end of the season. I know that they won four straight to finish off the year. They had that crazy game with the Chargers, and then they played the Bengals tough in the postseason. They were down early, came back, came within a score of tying that game and going to overtime. So talent is definitely there in some places. Good quarterback in Derek Carr. You had Devontae Adams, you had Chandler Jones, two older players, but two players still who can be difference makers at their best. But number one, they were lucky. They were a team that had some luck early in the season, won a couple games in overtime. Daniel Carlson, their kicker, I think had 9 kicks in the fourth quarter to take the lead, which was, I believe, an NFL record. I think that no one has had more than 6 in the past 20 years when it comes to that. And then those last 4 games, yes, they did win the final 4 games of the year to go from 6-7 to 10-7, but Chargers win was the Chargers win. Those 3 other games, 2-point win over the Browns with Nick Mullins at quarterback, their third stringer. 4-point win over the Broncos with Drew Lock, their backup at quarterback. 3-point win over the Colts with Carson Wentz, hours off of the COVID list, playing quarterback for them. So 3 wins over extremely compromised quarterbacks by narrow margins. To me, that's beating up on teams by narrow margins. That's usually a indicator that you're not going to be as good the following year. Of course, the AFC West, super tough now, adding Russell Wilson to the Broncos. Chargers are loaded. Chiefs, I know they lost Tyreek Hill. Chiefs are still going to be there in the long run. They lose a home game because the NFC has the extra home game this year. They play a tougher schedule because they were second in the division this year. To me, I think the Raiders are a good team. And I know they added Devontae Adams, but I don't think that's enough. I think they're a 7-8 win team again in 2022.
I would just add to that, Bill. I think the jury's out on Josh McDaniels
For sure.
based on what happened in Denver. And,
Mm-hmm.
We have a small sample size for him in Denver. It wasn't good.
Sure.
We have a small sample size for Rich Bisaccia, and it kind of was good. I'm a little surprised that they didn't allow Bisaccia to get a larger sample size, is the way I would probably describe that.
And I'll tell you what, the players loved him. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you can say the production was there or not there. I think they were a little lucky at the end of the year. But the players rallied behind Rich Bisaccia, at least publicly. Maybe privately they said differently, but publicly they said, we want this guy to stick around. He did not stick around. That's a real shame. And I think the other part of this, Ross, that I'm going to mention as we finish up here is this. The Chargers, the Raiders lost, of course, a couple of first-round picks to off-field behavior. And excuse me, I apologize. Henry Ruggs, the other Alabama wide receiver, obviously, car crash, killed someone with DUI, terrible situation. And they couldn't have anticipated that. David Arnett, their cornerback first-rounder, is a mess as a rookie. Year 2 gets cut after a very bizarre video where he's holding a gun. Obviously, 2 terrible things happening, and they couldn't anticipate that. But not only are those 2 guys gone, but they just declined the 5th-year option for their 3 first-rounders from, I think it was 2019. It was Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Abram,
Farrell.
And Cleveland Farrell was the 4th overall pick. Yeah. Those guys are still there for this year, but they haven't lived with expectations. Now they trade a 1st and 2nd round pick for Devontae Adams. That's 6 first-round picks. They're not on the roster, or they're not living up to expectations, Ross. And that's supposed to be the core of your football team. When you're 3-4 years into a draft, that's supposed to be where you are excelling. That's where the stars of your team are developing. The Raiders are a young team overall, but they don't have those guys. They're filling in those guys with guys from free agency, guys who are veterans that McDaniels knows prior. I mean, that's just not a good recipe. So to me, I think, if the Raiders look at they're on the come up, I just don't think they are, because that core of young talent that's supposed to be there just is not on this roster.